Everyone, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts, number 412, undo, redo improvements, and car latency driving. And yeah, it may not be a new planet reveal, but this is some of the best quality of life stuff I think we've had in all these Friday Facts for the expansion. Absolutely fantastic improvements. Well, I guess a new feature too, which is the redo. So this is by Strange Japan and Lao. The ability to redo things has been requested ever since we added the undo. Adding redo was one of the first projects at Woo, and one I've been super excited to announce for a long time. Now, in addition to using Control Z or the relevant Mac hotkey to reverse a build, deconstruct or upgrade order, you can now use Control Y or the relevant other hotkey to reissue a previously undone order. You can also use the new redo shortcut in the shortcut bar. It works exactly like you'd expect. So this is absolutely fantastic. I think that undo is one of the best things that has ever been added to the game, like quality of life wise, and I use it constantly. And redo is obviously the counterpart to that, and it's just going to be super helpful. Now, personally, I don't know if I'll use it a ton. I mean, the hope would be that you don't need to, because the more you need to use it, obviously that's kind of like more times you may have messed up. But it is super nice to now have that option. So the new redo shortcut lights up when there's something to redo and disabled when there's nothing to do, which is also super nice because it kind of just is a visual indicator too of yeah, there is something you could redo if you needed to, or there's not, because when you're all in the middle of stuff, it can maybe get kind of confusing or lose track of what you did or didn't do. But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. Just a really great kind of complement to the undo. Now, there's undo improvements as well. So, undo information and confirmation. One thing that is often super annoying and destructive is undoing actions, sometimes by accident, and something far away from a long time ago is also undone. For starters, we've added a flying text notification that pops up when you use the undo hotkey. This gives you some idea of what the heck you just did. So yeah, it just tells you right here above your head what it did, what it undid, and then the specific things, which is helpful. This on its own is not that help. I mean, it's more helpful than not having it, but it's still super vague because it's like, well, where are these things? Especially if you did it on accident. But it's an improvement, and then the next thing is massive. So in addition, when trying to undo an action that is more than a few minutes old, there's a confirmation dialog pop up to really bring it all together. So Guinness or Guinness. I'm so bad with names. I apologize. I added an awesome visual preview that reveals the entities to be affected, highlights entities to be deconstructed, and shows ghosts of entities to be built. So if it's now they say if it's more than a few minutes ago, I don't know what the actual parameter, like if it's more than 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know what, or if this is adjustable. But if it's not like extremely recent, if it's something just a little bit longer ago that you did, then you get this confirmation, which is way more informative, right? Because it tells you what planet you're on first off, or well, which one it's affecting, under deconstruction or undo, sorry, deconstruction of, and then this shows you what you're doing, like either you're undoing deconstruction or construction or whatever, exactly everything that includes, and actually shows the visual of it too, which is super helpful, right? So another thing we discovered during our playtesting is that it's easy to forget what you had in the undo stack. This is especially true in Space Age, in which players are constantly using remote view to, jump between planets and platforms. So they added a preview tooltip when you mouse over it, which shows you what is like the last thing that what you would be undoing if you used it, which is incredible. I would say almost this is more helpful than this. Again, when I say something is more helpful or not as helpful, I'm not saying any of it's bad or anything. I'm just comparing what we do have, which is all good. But this one I really like because you don't have to do the action to figure it out. You can just mouse over it and be like, oh yeah, okay, well this is what would be undone. I actually don't want to do that, or yeah, this is exactly what I want, etc. Right? So it's kind of just a version of the above, but without actually having to press the key or use the button to get there. So this is brilliant. I love this so much, and I do kind of wonder. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water there. I do kind of wonder if this will be a thing for the redo or why it wasn't. Maybe you can only redo once and it doesn't matter, or I'm not sure. So I feel like something like this for the redo would be kind of cool too, but Maybe they think it's like you would do it soon enough after making a mess up or whatever that you would just know what it is you're redoing. But anyway, undo improvement. So undo is in general, in its general purpose, works great, but there's one major issue that has remained for many years. Putting down a blueprint and then using undo doesn't actually undo everything. So it doesn't undo recipes that have been set, right? Wires that were created, rotations are not restored, and filters requests are not reverted. This presents a problem, obviously, because one of the axioms of undo is that anything you do will be undone, right? Cleaning up a misplaced blueprint should just work with undo, so let's get to work. So undo wire connection. Boss Kid added the ability to undo wire connections if you make a mistake while fiddling with combinators or power lines. You can use undo and redo to quickly get back on track. Right? Super easy. I love that this now works. When placing blueprint, the created wires are also added to the undo action so that part of the blueprint problem is fixed. Undo entity settings. So same thing. You can do this with recipes as well, which is actually really helpful. So you can see they're just copying the recipes and then they're like, oh, I actually didn't want to do that. So they undo and it tells you what's being undone and boom, you're back to where you started. And this also applies to settings copy when placing a blueprint over entities. So another blueprint problem checked off. I would say this is definitely the most helpful. Like if you manually set them, just because of the copy paste, it can be kind of easier to fix. But like on a blueprint, especially if you're not actually within range of the blueprint and you mess up, this is super, super helpful. And then undo blueprint rotation. So using super force mode, it is possible to override an entity direction. This is a nice feature and saves robots mining and placing all the entities again. But of course, they need to make it work for undo. And this doesn't apply to rotations made by hand. And the R key is that is easy to correct, right? Conclusion, with all these additions, undoing a blueprint placement is now a fully safe and clean operation. A small whoopsie won't leave your setups in disarray, which I have definitely had happen before. A few details are subject to change, but the undo redo system is seeing way more useful than ever before, and they're coming to 2.0 as part of the free update. You will not have to buy the space age part of the update to get access to these, which basically just seems the case for all quality of life. So I've mentioned this before, but just going forward, I would expect basically all quality of life things that are mentioned in these Friday Facts to be included for free with the 2.0 update, and like the actual brand new content. I mean, technically redo is a new piece of content, I suppose, but any like bigger, like major game, like, things we would place or you'd go or whatever are going to be in the paid part. I just want to clarify that because I still get questions, which is fine. I'm happy to answer them, but I just want to mention it from time to time. Now, the other thing which I am super, super excited about is car latency driving, because I have a lot of problems with driving. I'm an excellent driver in real life, actually. I am a terrible driver in Factorio, and I'm blaming the latency. I think it's the latency because I do play on a server because when I stream, because I use a integration with Twitch, which means I have to be on a server to use it. So when I do stream, I am actually on a server, which is multiplayer, right? Now, obviously in like a Let's Play, I would be single player, but I crash a lot, and I truly think it is because of latency. Anyone who's driven a vehicle in Factorio in multiplayer knows this is extremely annoying. even with low latency, right? Even if you're just connecting to someone a state or so away or something, like not across the ocean, it's still really difficult sometimes. So basically what they've done, I'm going to just kind of summarize this. There are some cool details which we'll touch on, but essentially they're doing latency hiding, which they have done before. I remember it was like a long time ago they went through this process, and I forget if it was for driving or something else. I apologize, I can't remember, but Lau basically talks to us about this where it's just hard because there's a little bit of delay, right? And they show an example, and this is funny. Lau's like, I swear I was sober driving. This is exactly how I feel. So, yeah, basically this is even worse with a tank because you'll just plow through everything. It doesn't. It's just not even left standing, right? So this is the latency hiding feature. Okay, yeah. So I'm not insane. This was Friday Facts 83. I think this was just generally with stuff in multiplayer, because I think this is when multiplayer came out, probably 83, guys. That's a lot ago. But anyway, yeah, if we come down, basically how it works is latency hiding features predict what's going to happen with the where the car is going to go. It predicts that, and then kind of like that way there's no visible lag to the player of it happening, right? Or anything like that. So it predicts a future game state from available information and shows the player the predicted state instead of their current one, right? So some issues with this were incorrectly evaluating the values of speed modifiers like fuel and all that stuff, and then and like when slime and stuff hits, I can see that being an issue, like with a tank when you're in combat. Audio issues, right, or when they're not being played when they should be. Graphic issues, ones like car lights not drawing properly when they should be. Many issues with entering and exiting the tank or car, sorry, in weird circumstances. Issues around remote view, editor, and switching between those. Some interesting damage stuff, right, which were almost always equivalent, except when doing very little damage to an entity with very little health remaining. Many small issues, selecting latency, hidden car, latency car not being moved by belts, etc. So you can kind of see this is like an example. A bug where initial speed of the vehicle was entered was not correctly accounted for. Latency 66 ghost transparent visualization of game state car in debug mode, right? So yeah, it's like a little bit off, unfortunately. That was an issue. I think they kind of fixed most of these. A bug where a vehicle was not being moved by belts, so you can see it's kind of a little off now. Latency on time effects. So there's some stuff that you want to be done only once per client, right? Which would be things like sounds, regardless of during game state or latency mode, respawning particles are playing a sound. And then basically how they accomplish this is by turning these into latency one-time effects, comparing them with a data structure of already performed ones that persists through both latency and state updates, game state updates, and only executing the ones that have not yet been performed. Unfortunately, though, the checks need to be quite strict to allow for exact or example multiple particles from the same source, the same tick close to each other. So the result is that there is, when there's even a minuscule mismatch between predictions, they're rewarded by receiving an extra set of sounds and particles for every latency update, right? These sound like they would be small and unnoticeable, but they're quite the opposite. So every small perfection will need to be fixed, of course. The smaller your latency is, any unaccounted for happenstances will be both less observable and less likely. So the result we get here, right? And this is way better, right? Like you can see very snappy response times, turning times, easy to, avoid stuff. And it works really, really well. So basically, for pretty much all stuff, it should be good. Again, I am interested how they handle this with things like, when you're fighting, and especially like if you're like weaving around and the worms or spitters are shooting the goop. I can see it being really hard or near impossible to predict if you're going to hit the goop or not. Like if you're just driving in a straight line, then obviously, because the bug predicts where you're going, so it's going to shoot and then you're going to drive through it. But like if you're like weaving all over the place, which you should be doing if you want to avoid the goop, I'm not quite sure how that's going to be handled. But overall, this is it. I know kind of a lot of talking and reading. I apologize for some of my reading mistakes. But yeah, so just absolutely brilliant. I love these. The driving will be huge for me. I usually avoid using vehicles at all just because I struggle with it so much with the latency. And the undo and redo is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, the undo is something I use like pretty often. And having these additional features will be great. And then the redo is just, the cherry on top kind of. And that is going to do it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed. If you're excited about these, as I am, definitely drop a like on the video. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always, down below. You guys always share a ton of great thoughts and feedback in the comments, which I do enjoy reading. Even if I don't reply, I did read it. I do read all the comments on these videos. So I do really enjoy reading them and, share them with the devs as well. And if you're new, feel free to subscribe if you aren't already to keep up with future content. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.